Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Meaningful Motivations with Tracy Erickson. And of course, if you are new to this channel, welcome. My name is Tracy Erickson. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about one of the lesser known homes of Charles Manson and his family, and how this particular place could have been a catalyst that led Charles Manson and his family into darkness. So stay tuned. I'm sure that most of you out there have heard of Charles Manson and the Manson family and the horrible things that this group of people did back in the 1960s and 70s. But this story today is actually going to be about the Spiral Staircase house, which Charles Manson and his family, or the beginnings of his family, called home in 1967. Charles Manson spent many of his younger years in prison, and it was in March of 1967, after being released from prison, that Charles Manson began to travel around California in a black school bus. And he would go around trying to find young, impressionable minds to bring along with him in this school bus. And they would listen to the Magical Mystery Tour by the Beatles. They would do LSD. They would have group lovemaking sessions. And basically, they were just, at that time, they were out there looking for a good time. After being released from prison on March 22nd, 1967, Charles Manson made his way all the way to San Francisco. And it was in San Francisco, while he lived there briefly, where he met the owner of the Spiral Staircase house. Now, the owner of this particular house in Topanga Canyon actually gave Charles Manson and his family, or the beginnings of his family, full permission to use the Spiral Staircase as a crash pad as often and for however long they needed. Manson took her up on this offer, and the family and himself moved into the Spiral Staircase house in 1967. Now, they only ended up staying there for about 2 months. But even though the stay was very short, the Spiral Staircase house actually had a lasting impact on the dynamic of the group and of Charles Manson himself. In Charles Manson, A Life from Beginning to End, it states, "The Spiral Staircase was a hangout for LA's rich and famous icons of counterculture. Jim Morrison, members of the Mamas and the Papas, and Jay Sebring were all said to get high at the Spiral Staircase." That's right, Jay Sebring is among the list of people who were known to hang out and get high at the Spiral Staircase house. And I found that piece of information rather interesting, because Jay Sebring was the ex-lover of Sharon Tate, who then turned into her best friend while she was married to Roman Polanski. And Jay Sebring was one of the 5 people who would later be murdered at Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski's home in California in 1969. The book The Family by Ed Sanders also brings up the Spiral Staircase house. And in that book, it says, while Manson made his initial attempts to record his songs at Universal Studios, he made his base camp at a secluded house at the mouth of Topanga Canyon near the Pacific Coast Highway. It was located behind the Raft Restaurant on Topanga Canyon Lane. This place was called the Spiral Staircase, after its spiral staircase at the entrance. The house had slid off its foundation and rested askew, and apparently its first floor had a creek flowing through it. It was fairly large, and according to Manson, there were windows that opened out onto the hill and back, and doors that opened upon a 25-foot drop straight down into the creek. And about the spiral staircase house, the MansonBlog.com says, there are many legends regarding the spiral staircase. What is known is that it was located in an area of the lower Topanga collectively known as the rodeo grounds. More specifically, the building stood in a part of the rodeo grounds known as the Snake Pit. The Snake Pit got its name from the number of rattlesnakes there and the unsavory types who gravitated to the cottages in the late 60s and after. Local legends claim that devil worshippers, motorcycle gangs, and drug dealers once hid in the Snake Pit. Before their time at the Spiral Staircase House, Charles Manson and the beginnings of the Manson family were simply out there looking for a good time, for the most part. Charles Manson was more interested in following his dream of making music. He wanted to be a singer and songwriter at the time. But it's almost as though the world had different plans for him. He was hardly ever accepted into the inner circle of the famous people he was constantly putting himself around. Many people know of his relationship with Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys, and he's also been hanging around people like the Mamas and the Papas and other producers and music directors, things like that. But he could never quite get his foot in the door when it came to his musical career. So it was kind of a turning point in his life when he found this spiral staircase, which brought him deeper and deeper into darkness. Once Charles Manson and his family was given complete crash privilege from the owner of the spiral staircase, they ended up parking their bus and exposing themselves to all of the blood drinkers and ritualists that would come and go at the property. Although Manson had already been introduced to black magic and devil worshippers while he was in prison, he wrote that he had his first meeting with the SoCal variety of devil worshippers and Satanists at the Spiral Staircase House, and that it was the Spiral Staircase House that changed his group's philosophies into the madness that engulfed them. The book The Family says that Manson wrote about these Satanist and devil-worshipping groups that he met at the Spiral Staircase, saying, "Each time I returned, I would observe and listen to all of the practices and rituals of the different groups that visited the place." And after describing some of the grotesque rituals they witnessed, the groups performing at this house, Manson went on to write, "The day we first drove up, we were innocent children in comparison to some of those we saw during our visits there. In looking back, I think I can honestly say our philosophy, fun and games, love and sex, peaceful friendship for everyone, began changing into the madness that eventually engulfed us in that house." Is it possible that the Spiral Staircase House had become some type of portal for demonic energies to come through and attach to the people that stayed there? When I look at the events that followed their short time at the Spiral Staircase House in 1967, it is possible that the house had some kind of influence on their descent into evil. From the metaphysical perspective, everything is energy, and the more energy that is fed to a certain thought form, the larger the energy vortex becomes around that thought form. Essentially, the more energy and attention that one gives to evil, the more evil can grow. In the case of the Spiral Staircase House, it's located in the Snake Pit, and it has a crooked foundation, and the people who frequent the place have this house full of sex, drugs, and blood-drinking rituals. And I believe the energy that has been fed to that one location could have the power to drag a person down into the depths of their own psyche. The place itself isn't the problem, it's the energy of the people and what takes place there that is the problem. If this level of evil did not already exist in Charles Manson at the time of finding the spiral staircase house, then it is possible that what he was exposed to while there could have been something that was fed into his psyche and something that ended up imprinting inside of his mind. And that impression that the people and rituals of the spiral staircase house, that stuff could have been festering inside of him, therefore changing his psyche along the way as he gave this darker side of himself more and more attention. I believe that where your attention goes, energy flows. So if you spend your days with your attention focused on evil, then evil is what you will become. And it could be true that the Manson family was able to propel themselves deeper into evil by the introduction to the rituals and sacrifices that they had never seen before. Manson himself became lustful for more of the evil that he was introduced to until he became fully possessed by the idea of evil itself. And that is when this evil spread to his followers through manipulation and mind control. Let this be a cautionary tale, not to let the flames of the lower self consume your entire being. It's time for people to take responsibility for the thoughts, the attitudes, and the people and places that you allow into your life, into your consciousness, into your psyche. When you give attention to anything, it grows, and sometimes can take you over in a way that you never thought could possibly happen, until it does. Well, that about wraps it up for this video. So if you like this video, be sure to click that like button and feel free to share this video all around with your friends out there. And of course, if you're a viewer but not yet a subscriber, I would love for you to click subscribe down below. And once you have subscribed, you could turn on the notifications bell if you would like to be notified each and every time I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching and spending your time with me. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.